Missed it. Just a little long. I let just a little second there. Try to get that crash bell symbol there. How you doing? I'm back for the third one because I didn't want to leave any stones unturned, because there's a couple things that bothered me that I wanted to clarify more, and I was, like, it's just sort of like, it's hard when I go on set. I got 27 minutes and, I don't know, 17 seconds, 18 seconds, and it's hard to, when you have that much time and it's a live take and everything's authentic here. I build it up, I tear it down, I build it back up, I mean, there's no remakes. Everything, that comes off my tongue, so if I make a mistake, and say, put a word where I shouldn't, or forget, train of thought or something, I'm human, right? I'm trying to, and I'm doing it mostly, it's all improvised. I'm not reading hardly anything. I mean, there was times I did in my presentation and so forth, and my 10 super features and benefits, and that's what you got to check out, my CFL Red Zone Rule page when I get it back up properly, which I'll be working with, I think, my son on maybe this week and the first of next week, but it'll be done by the first of next week for sure. Okay, so make sure that I get this all straightened out again, but I know it's a prank, it's a bully thing, it's like a, Joker thing. It's unbelievable. And I know who it is. I told you who it is. I know who it is. Anyway, I'm glad I'm not a person like that. That's all I can say. I'm proud to be a better person than that. There's so much like ego and pompousness, and like, it's just, I don't know, in the sports media today in Canada, like, there's only Mr. Van Stone's not one of them. Like, he's behind my role, and he's really encouraged me. He's in my presentation, and he said, he says something that made a lot of sense. My CFL Red Zone role would be a lot better than 12-yard kicks. Like, he's right. I mean, there's way too many, and that's what I want to talk about that I didn't cover enough. There's way too many field goals in the CFL. And I had that written down. I forgot to cover it. Actually, it was in one of my subject titles, and I forgot to really put emphasis on that. I'm going to, but the low scoring and all it's even more field goals. And there was like way too many before. It was outrageously high. Now it's like insanely high. Like, there's so many field goals in the CFL for way too many points, and even magnified in the red zone for way too many points in easy chip shot, non-eventful easy chip shot field goals. But I'll go over that a little more in depth. I just wanted to say that, yeah, there's a lot of pompous sports, egotistical sports writers out there that bash the CFL. But, they actually get paid for it, and they bash it. They bash it. They don't do that in the NFL. The NFL, American people, I know, my sister's married to one in Colorado, and like, they don't bash down. They hype the NFL. They don't run down like BlackBerry was run down, put it out of business their own country. They don't run down Apple like that. They don't run down the NFL and their sports. Look, their sports leagues. Look how. That's why college football and high school football is so big. They're positive about it. They're enthusiastic about it. They promote it. All the media promotes it. They don't run it down. And I remember the Ottawa Redblacks when they were back in the league, and there was a guy, I forget his name. I tuned into him on a talk show. He wasn't a sports brass guy, but he used to be a sports talk show, but he became a news talks guy, or just a host about everyday life subjects, everyday subjects. But he said, without the Red Blacks, the key is that the media can't be negative. The press, the media can't be. They got to hype them. They got to get beyond. They can't be running them down like they do the Argonauts in Toronto and the CFL in Toronto and in BC, Montreal. And actually all markets right across. Look at Calgary, look at Edmonton. They're becoming like more like NFL. Toronto, they're becoming more like Toronto markets. Like in BC and Montreal markets, they really are. And you have to blame it all on the CFL. It's like Steve Armitage says, they're not willing to change, and they won't change, and they need to change. And that's when I was talking about the Canadian ratio, how important it is to change it. And I'll get back to too many field goals, and I'll get back to my rule again. But I want to talk about the ratio a little more, because there's other things I wanted to say about it. And it's so true. Like the Canadian players, even more so than American players, want to go to the NFL. That's why they changed the one-year contracts, and it's true, because they're hypocritical. Like I remember Lothar and the ones on the Canadian Players Association members, right? And they were saying, oh, when they wanted to change the Canadian ratio the last time from 7 to 5, and then it went to 10 for the started Canadian ratio. Went to 10, but still half the team has to be Canadian, right? And that has to change dramatically in numbers. I suggest a five practice roster spot. Canadian players. The soccer, Major League Soccer teams like in Toronto FC and Montreal and Vancouver, they have a 3 Canadian soccer roster ratio for Canadian players just to develop them. That's what the CFL needs to do. But they don't have to start them. They're not forced to start them. Half the team doesn't have to be Canadian. And they don't have to start 7 or 10 starters that have to be Canadian. They'd be out of business. The MLS soccer Canadian franchisees would be out of business. I mean, the Premier Soccer League Canadian have more of a ratio in that, but they're developing Canadian players, understand that. But the CFL is a professional football league, and yes, they're in competition with the NFL, and in competition, that's their biggest competition, and they're in competition with all the other professional sports leagues too, for the entertainment dollar. And they're the only ones that have a ridiculous Canadian ratio. It's a dictating. They're dictating who starts and plays. They're handcuffing the coaches who starts and plays. They have to juggle lineups all the time. They have to sit better and their best American players, some of them on the bench. You can't play them because they have to play weaker Canadian players to fill the Canadian ratio. Can you imagine? And fans have called in the radio stations and complained about that. He said, I pay good money. I want to see these players play, not sitting on the bench because of a Canadian ratio. They want the Canadian ratio gone. These are younger generation fans, the few that they have that are complaining, and the older generation fans that are complaining, that demographic, complaining about it continually. And they do nothing but shove it down his throat further and have a 10 Canadian starter ratio. It's unbelievable. And yes, the Canadian players and the Canadian Players Association and members are hypocrites because they said, oh yeah, if we go down to 5 from 7 starters and they went to 10, that's how they forced their hand. They're manipulative. They said, oh, nobody would go. The Canadian CFL would go out of business. What a joke. Nobody will go. Well, if it's so popular and such a big feature in the CFL and so demanding to see Canadian players play because of their passport, because of Canadian ratio, then why aren't the stadiums filled? Why aren't the stadiums filled? Why aren't the stadiums filled then? Your Canadian players and Canadian Players Association made up of careful Canadian guaranteed Canadian old linemen that are getting $200,000 for starting in the CFL because CFL teams are forced because of the Canadian ratio and they're not even good enough to start? Come on, get with the program, the CFL and the CFL owners, come on! You're burying yourself. They're hypocrites because Lothar was down in the NFL trying to make it, and other Canadian players, and the best Canadian players are down in the NFL, starting and on a practice roster, never coming back. They're hypocrites because it's only because if they don't, that's why they want one-year contracts too. They don't care about the CFL. They just care about themselves. They use the CFL. They use their Canadian ratio. They use their Canadian Players Association to run the CFL. To get what they want, and one-year contracts that go to the NFL with as well as American players, probably even more than American players. It's unbelievable what's going on. It's unbelievable, and it has to change. And I've been on this for almost 10 minutes, and I'm going to stop at this point. But you've got to be listening to CFL and the CFL owners. That's why I like Mark Cohen as the commissioner, because he was for the owners and he was for the fans. The younger gen, they're never going to ever grow their fan base. Look at the empty seats. in the CFL. It's the worst attendance they ever had. The Edmonton Eskimos one game, there was 5,000 people. The last game in Calgary, it might have been 2,000 or 3,000. In Montreal, like in Toronto, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people. In Vancouver, 5,000, 4,000. It's unbelievable. You got to change. You got to make changes. The Canadian ratio needs to be eliminated so the best available players can be recruited, the best talent. And how are you going to sell the CFL and three-down football if you don't allow the best players to be recruited and the best players to start and play at every position for an entire CFL game? How are you going to sell the game? Well, you're not selling it because you see the results. Numbers don't lie. The Canadian ratio has to be abolished, gone. The one-year contract's got to be abolished, gone. All the flags thrown all on the field by the referees. Outrageous amount of flags thrown, sometimes 20 for one team. It's common to have 20 to 25 flags every game in the CFL. It's unbelievable. When the NFL, they average around 5 to 8 for both teams. Because they put the flag in their pocket. They allow the game to be played because you're selling, like Mr. Steve Armity said, you're selling entertainment and excitement. No, the CFL want to sell the Canadian ratio and shove it down your throat and have Canadian players that aren't good enough playing on the field. They have no business being on the field. Only there because of Canadian ratio. Listen, if they're going to be good enough, they will make a CFL team. And if I was a CFL owner, I'd want to recruit a really good top Canadian player that I could get him in the CFL before he tries the NFL. And I would sign him. You have to have it. That's why you need a 2 and 3 year contract. And yes, if it was good enough, I'd bring him to camp. And if he could make the roster, he'd make the roster. But he'd have to make the starting position. Like every other professional sports leagues. Okay? What players have to do, you have to make the team, actually make the team, make the roster, and make a starting spot on the team. Start and play on the team. Like, how's the CFL ever going to be respected with a format like this? It's unbelievable. Yes, flags. Flags. Referees throwing flags what is this? The Canadian Flag Football League? What is this? All over the field. They got to be told, you keep your flag in your pocket. This is what you're allowed. 8 maximum flags per game. That's it. 8 to 10, that's it for both teams. That's the maximum amount. But we want an average around 8 like the NFL. That's it. All the borderline calls, no more. No more. We need to sell our game. We need to sell punt returns, big punt returns for touchdowns. We need to sell big plays in the CFL. Not be taken back every time with flags all over the field. Penalty after penalty after penalty, but the players have an obligation too. They have to practice more than 4.5 hours, and that's another thing. The Canadian Players Association want it. They don't want to practice anymore. They just want to take the paycheck. Yeah, and the Canadian players get a lot more because of the Canadian ratio. Because they know they have to play them. They know that half the team's got to be Canadian. And it drives the salary cap right out of whack. And that's why CFL teams can't sign American players more and pay them more money because of the Canadian ratio, because the Canadian players are demanding all this money because they're forced to play them. And half the team has to be Canadian. And they're forced to start them. Now 10 starters. This is bad. This is terrible for business. You can't have, it's got to be an equal playing field on salaries. And there can't be any more big bonuses in the CFL. And by the way, on quarterbacks, it's going to be a cap on quarterbacks too. There's $650,000 and $750,000 for like Riley and Broly Van Mitchell. I'm sorry, like that's too much money in the CFL. There's got to be a cap of $350, $200, $150 to $200 for a backup, and $350 for no more than $400,000 for a quarterback in the CFL. That's it. That's plenty. That's what it used to be. It's way out of whack. Okay, and the owners are losing millions and tens of millions of dollars. They can't do it much longer. The CFL's got to go down. The CFL needs to change. They need to change. And like like my last, just to add to my last video, when is the last time the CFL came in or came up with a huge new rule that's going to sell CFL 3-down football? A new innovative, a real innovative rule, new rule, CFL rule, a new rule that creates a lot of drama in the game of football, in this case, the CFL 3-down game of football. A rule that creates way more entertainment value for the fan. Means it makes our CFL 3-down game a lot more entertaining to watch. Entertainment value, very important. You have to put focus on that. You're selling entertainment and excitement to CFL. Do you know that's what you're selling? And a new rule, new CFL rules are going to make our game a lot more exciting. So to make it a lot more innovative rule that the CFLs never came up with. That would be a rule that would be a lot more entertaining, and a rule that would be a lot more exciting, and a rule that would be a lot more appealing and more attractive to attract the younger generation sports fan, that mass market younger generation sports fan that the CFL desperately needs. And a significant new CFL rule that's powerful and impactful, and the biggest CFL rule in CFL history in all professional football. That's what they need to have. And I have it. SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule. That's the rule. That's the rule that can do it. Because there's not a rule out there that could possibly do what my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule could do. You find a rule that can eliminate the two biggest turnoffs, two biggest killers in the red zone. That being 2-down stops in the red zone, and that being resulting in more boring, non-eventful, distasteful, easy chip shot field goals in the red zone, or slightly outside the red zone, depending on when that second down stop is made in the red zone. Can you imagine a rule that could completely eliminate those two biggest turnoffs and two biggest killers of our CFL 3-down game? Well, guess what? My SPYDER CFL Red Zone will remarkably completely eliminate those two biggest turnoffs and two biggest killers of our CFL 3-down game in the red zone, and replace them with, if the CFL, amongst 9 CFL teams, go back to that 54.8% average percentage of touchdowns scored in the red zone, with my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule, enforcement rule, it would be guaranteed 50 more touchdowns scored for a total of 200 more points, because you take the spread, that 4-point spread from a touchdown being scored versus an easy chip shot field goal. Okay? 4 times 50 is 200. Easy math. And it guarantee you 18%. Imagine that. And there's so many other features. There's so many other features, you know, my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule. There's 10 super features and benefits that's on my Facebook page that I went over with in other videos, by the way. And they're powerful. They're powerful. And by the way, I want to go over my rule again for one last time. I just want to really simplify it so you really understand it. So you really, really understand it. And you understand that it's not 4-down football. That's the key. I want you to really understand that it's not 4-down football. Okay? My SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule is an enforcement rule. The CFL already have enforcement rules in overtime. When you score a touchdown in overtime, you've got to go for the 2-point convert. That's an enforcement rule. My CFL Red Zone rule is also an enforcement rule, but it's taken to a whole new level. Okay? And it will create way more drama, way more excitement than the 2-point convert enforcement rule in the red zone, by the way. Okay? In overtime. My SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule in a nutshell. Okay? I'll read it to you in a nutshell. This is how easy it is, and I'll fill in the blanks. Okay? And it's in my presentation. It's on my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule Facebook page. That'll be up hopefully next week, so someone try to hack into it or whatever. Okay? SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule in a nutshell. It's simply an enforcement rule. CFL teams will play exciting 3-down football in the red zone to score touchdowns if the 3rd down is needed. And if stopped on 3rd down in the red zone, still maintaining possession of the ball, they will get SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule from the 35-yard line. When you add the 7, it's actually from the 42. It's a challenging kick. That's it in a nutshell. That's my Spider CFL red zone rule in a nutshell. Okay? It would also apply and be enforced in overtime along with the current enforced 2-point convert. And with the new compatible attached reward at CFL red zone rule kick, it's not an automatic 3 points, but a much more challenging kick from the 35-yard line. And I went over that when you add the 7 yards, it's actually kick from the 42, which would be a lot better than a 10-yard kick. That adds even more drama and excitement to the rule, to my Spider CFL red zone rule. What's phenomenal about Spider CFL red zone rule is that it's not only super exciting offensively in the red zone and full of drama, defensively as well. It would create an invigorating plot that's also full of drama and excitement in the red zone, because the CFL team on defense can come up with a big stop on 3rd down, preventing a touchdown from being scored in the red zone. And even a bigger defensive play, if the defense forces the CFL team on offense in the red zone on 3rd down outside the red zone, preventing the CFL red zone kick. Can you imagine the excitement in the red zone at a CFL game? If my CFL red zone rule was made part of a CFL 3-down game, it would be superb and super exciting. It would be actually phenomenal. And here's the big thing, here's the big thing, a big selling feature. And with my CFL red zone rule made part of a CFL 3-down game, there would be remarkably no more discontented, loud booing in the red zone to go for it on 3rd down when CFL teams refuse to go for it on the 5, 4, 3, and even the 2-yard line in the red zone, because they really only go for it on the 1-yard line when they're in the red zone. There would be also no more boring, predictable, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goals in the red zone, all astonishingly completely gone. How big would that be for CFL 3-down football? It would be huge, and a huge selling feature to sell CFL 3-down football. And what I want to do, I wanted to read that to you because that's it in a nutshell. But remember something that's very, very important, okay? A CFL team, okay, now can play with my rule now, my Spider CFL red zone rule in the red zone right now, anytime now, right now. The rule's there. It's not enforced, but the rule's there. But they don't. They only go for it in the 3rd down and play exciting 3-down football. Well, that's not too exciting when it's 1 yard, but it could be a touchdown. That's exciting. To score a touchdown on the 1-yard line, that's it. On 3rd down, they gamble. But in most cases, the 2, right up to the 20, they don't. So fans are booing, and they kick another non-eventful, boring, easy chip shot field goal. So here's the thing. With my Spider CFL red zone rule being an enforcement rule, on 3rd down if needed, they got to go for it. They try to score a touchdown and play exciting CFL 3-down football. But defensively, if they're stopped on 3rd down, and the CFL team on offense on 3rd down still maintains possession of the ball, and they're not pushed outside the red zone on 3rd down, they get my Spider CFL red zone kick from the 35, and you add the 7 yards. It's from the 42. But if they're stopped and pushed outside the red zone on 3rd down, if needed, in the red zone, they don't get my Spider CFL red zone rule kick. And by the way, my Spider CFL red zone rule kick is not 4 downs. And I'll explain to you why it's not 4 downs. A football down, okay, is a down that you can either throw the ball, okay, hand off the ball, run the ball, okay, kick the ball, like you could even kick it, like on 2nd downs. They've done that before, like to catch a team off guard, right? Of course, kick the ball, right? Or fake a kick and go for it, okay, a 1st down, okay, that's a down. You can't do any of that. You can't do any of that by CFL red zone rule kick. That attachment part of my rule, you can't do it. It's just like my CFL red zone rule in the red zone. It's an enforcement rule, okay? On 3rd down, if it's needed, they need to play exciting 3-down football. They need to go for it on 3rd down. My CFL red zone rule kick, if they maintain possession of the ball, not forced outside red zone 3rd down, they have to kick my CFL red zone kick from the 35 and you add the 7 from the 42. They can't fake it and go for a touchdown. They have to kick. My Spider CFL red zone rule. Kick. For 3 points. Because it's an enforcement rule. So it's not 4-down football. I mean, you have to be, seriously, an imbecile to think it's 4-down football. Seriously. Stephen Armitage never said it was 4-down football. Mr. Vanso never said it was 4-down football. Jamie Nye never said 4-down football. All the people I surveyed, 500 and more, including CFL coaches, high school coaches, ex-CFL former players, CIS football players, high school football players, former CFL players, none of them said it was 4-down football. It's not 4-down football. So anyway, my Spider CFL red zone rule would be huge. That's why I wanted to come back, and it would be huge. And I went over it enough now, and it's very simple to understand, and I don't want to keep going over it, but at times, because I'm coming back for after the Eastern and Western semifinals, I'm coming back after the Western finals, and I'm coming back after the Grey Cup. So I'm coming back 3 more times, so that's like, so I did 3, and I did 3 before, or 6, so that I'm going to have like 9 total, okay? So that's why my CFL Red Zone Rule would be so powerful. Check out the 10 super features and benefits of my CFL Red Zone Rule on my Facebook page that I'm going to get back up. Take care, Spider, Spider, here comes Spider, CFL Red Zone Rule. Watch the games, the semifinals.